Alright, I'm back again. It's very early in the morning. I'm on my way to work. Last night before I went to bed, I came across this video. It's about a 13-14 minute long video from CNN. I will have the link in the description below. Nancy Pelosi had an interview with Wolf Blitzer. Now I'm going to go ahead and preface this by stating it's not every month I watch something from CNN. It's not every month I watch something from Fox News even. Just not a huge fan. I've not always been a huge fan of Wolf Blitzer because there's been times he has a tinge of bias has come through. It's very easy for that to happen. You hear that a lot. Sometimes you can actually hear the bias. But I'm going to go ahead and say this. In this particular interview, I think he did pretty darn well. He was... Honestly, he did not let a lot of the thoughts... I don't think he had a lot of his personal opinions coming through, or maybe he did. It just so happened that they aligned with a lot of the things everyone has been thinking, myself included, and that's why it just didn't come through. But if, she was being a bit, well, if you watch the video, she was not being pleasant at all. And he was willing to put up with it to an extent. But finally, she just kept interrupting him and telling him how disrespectful he was to everyone and this and that, and how he didn't know anything. Nobody knew anything but her and her policy makers. And he finally had enough. And he finally just started dishing it right back out and was nice, bold, and assertive. And I can honestly say, I can't remember if he's ever moderated a debate. I'm pretty sure he has, because he's been around a good bit and been kind of a name brand for a good bit. So I say he has. I would love to go back and see how he did. Because if he handled himself the way he did with Nancy Pelosi, I say he would make a darn good moderator. But yeah, they were talking about a stimulus package. And he stopped just short of how do you plan on paying for what you're wanting. I think he was starting to, but he was interrupted and switched gears and never came back around to it, because he started to get around to that, I honestly think. And he said, why don't you just meet with Trump, discuss it with him, get something going now. You can worry about the other stuff later, but get something now to help people. And she would just cut him off and state how, nobody knows better than me and our policy makers what the people need. That is more or less a direct quote, while having this smirmy little grin on her face. If you can't tell, I have certain leanings very much the opposite of Nancy Pelosi. So this is not just my bias coming through. There was nothing redeemable about her performance. She came across as hateful, conceited, and a whole host of things, just an elitist and downright clueless. And I don't know how people can vote for her. But yeah, I'm just I'm dumbfounded. And I could have listened to it before doing this video. But it's early and I don't want to start my day off on even more of the wrong foot than I do when, I have to wake up and go to work. But I would like to throw this out. I looked last night, and I think she has an estimated net worth of about $120 million. Wolf Blitzer has a estimated net worth of like $20 million. She, I know, lives in gated communities. I don't know where he lives. I know she probably has armed security and all that crap. I'm pretty sure he doesn't. And at some point in time, I'm willing to wager he probably spends more time around even middle-class Americans that aren't working for him and his buddies than she does. Probably lower classes as well. I'm pretty sure she is too snobbish to associate with anyone who is not of her ilk unless they're being paid to be there. Aside from that, there's no doubt in my mind she is clueless on what the American people truly want. She is clueless on what the American people truly need. She's clueless on the fact that, these big bills have to be paid for. And economically speaking, borrowing more money when we're already pushing, $30 trillion in debt? Something like that. Or printing more money and sending us into, rapid inflation. None of those are fiscally sound. But she's clueless. And quite frankly, this is why I advocate for term limits. She is not of the age where I trust her to be running a country. She isn't. She's more of the age where she ought to be sitting in a retirement home slurping on tapioca pudding. But yet here she is lecturing a news reporter who is relaying questions and comments that have been probably most likely relayed to him that were screened by people who work there at CNN. And they are questions and comments from people like me who are middle class at best. I'm probably, truth be known, lower middle class, but I'm still middle class and I'll own up to it. But that's where he was most likely getting the questions from, or at least the content for the questions, and he or someone just kind of worded them around. And she dismissed them with, "How dare you're being disrespectful for questioning us," and you don't know what you're talking about. That's more or less a direct quote as well. And he would say, these are things that viewers are asking. But she knows better than, and if that is the case, and I honestly believe they did get those questions from people commenting or emailing, whatever. I honestly do believe that. But if Nancy Pelosi thinks she knows better than Wolf Blitzer, I doubt it, truth be known. And if she's going to shame, I think, a somewhat respected journalist trying to shut him up, she's no better than Trump when he does that, and she makes rails on him when he does that. So she's a hypocrite. But also, let's just say those really were comments and questions coming from the people. She's also saying She knows better for you and me than we know for ourselves. She talks about how she was elected to represent the people. Great. Represent us. But don't talk down to us. Do not talk down to us. Do not think we don't have an understanding on our financial situation. When your biggest concern is, do I want the $60,000 Mercedes or the $70,000 or whatever? Or which mansion do I want to go home to vacation in this time? Well, that's more or less her situation. If that's your lifestyle, do not try to convince anyone. Do not go around saying you know better for the everyday American people than those of us who get up and go to work 5 days a week, or those who are currently out of work because of a pandemic, because this got probably further than it coulda, woulda, shoulda had, because here we are a year later after we first started finding out about it. And they're still changing on how long it can remain in the air and on surfaces and how it's spread. That is still changing. Up until this past week, there was a belief of a thing called immunity. They were talking about herd immunity, and then in the past week, someone came out and is the first confirmed case in North America of someone getting this crap a second time. It's been a year. We still do not know squat about it. And I don't think that is necessarily a failure of this administration. Because it's hard, even if there was someone better in the White House, a better administration, their policy can be no better than the information provided to them by the so-called experts. And the so-called experts are still struggling to figure it out. So Nancy Pelosi, you and your little highfalutin buddies, don't go around trying to say you know better than me on what my needs are. I'm willing to wager I could probably speak better on the needs of the everyday working class, the middle class. I know better than you. Would be better off representing them than you. Because I would be representing myself and people like me. Not people that I feel are beneath me, like you obviously seem to do. Because if you think everyday working class people don't know what's best for themselves, you think you're above them. I'm going to get off of here. Like I said, I'll have a link down below to this, the video. Like I said, it's about 14. It's actually shorter than my response. But let me know what you think. Was her behavior and the things she was saying, are they in any way appropriate for the Speaker of the House? And something else to think about. if this is the mentality of people in Congress, is there any question as to why things are not getting done? Because, like I've said before, Trump is not the problem. Trump getting elected was not the problem. The problem was they were struggling to get stuff done at the end of George W. Bush's presidency. They struggled to get stuff done under Obama. And people got fed up. That's why they went with Trump, because they thought he could whip them into shape. Instead, he wound up fighting them just to keep his own job. And I'm not saying he's the best thing ever, but even if he was, he would have been hard pressed to accomplish anything with them. So I think it's time we definitely have a nice hard discussion on term limits and age limits. Because I think a good portion of the people in Congress are of the senile age range, where things like being senile, dementia, Alzheimer's, things like that, cognitive decline, they're in that age range. Anyway, this is already longer than I thought it would be. Later.